King Herod was the monarch of the Jews between 37 years before Christ. He is also known as Herod the Great and Herod I. Herod was marked in history for being a bloodthirsty person and a king hated by the people. It was he who ordered the execution of the newborn boys of Bethlehem. But when asking about who Herod was, it is necessary to know that there are different Herods mentioned in the Bible. All people who bore this name were descendants of Herod the Great. He had many children and grandchildren, the result of his marriages with several wives, being the progenitor of a large clan. Therefore, to talk about the story of King Herod, we need to define who we are talking about. But before continuing with the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video and leave your like. It's very important for the channel, so let's go. In this list we will only consider the main descendants of Herod the Great. This will help us understand who is who among the Herods mentioned in the Bible. Herod Philip, he was the son of Herod and Mariamna, the Bethusian. He married Herodias, daughter of Aristobulus, his half-brother. With Herodias he was the father of Salome, mentioned in the Gospels. It was she who asked for the head of John the Baptist under the influence of her mother. Matthew 14:6, Mark 6:22, 28, Luke 3:19. Herod Archelaus, he was the eldest son of Herod the Great and Malchus, a Samaritan woman. He reigned briefly in Herod's place. Luke 2:22. Afterwards he was exiled by Rome. Many consider Herod Archelaus to be the most hated among all of Herod's heirs. Herod Antipas, he was Herod's youngest son with Malchus. He is also known as Herod the Tetrarch. He married Herodias, the wife of his half-brother, Herod Philip. The first Herod Antipas is mentioned prominently in the New Testament. Herod Philip was probably the one who became known as Philip, the Tetrarch. He was the son of Herod the Great and Cleopatra of Jerusalem. After his father's death, he received the Tetrarchy of Etruria, Trachonites, and other additional territories. Luke 3:1. He is believed to have died approximately 34 years after Christ. Herod Agrippa I was the grandson of Herod the Great and son of Aristobulus. He is a person designated in Acts 12:1 as Herod the King. He lived in Rome for a long time, and then the Roman Emperor Gaius was appointed ruler of territories in northeastern Palestine. Later, Galilee, Perea, Judea, and Samaria were annexed to his kingdom. He was responsible for persecuting the apostles in the early years of the early church. The estimated year of his death is 40 for deposits of Christ. Herod Agrippa II, he was the son of Agrippa I, therefore, great-grandson of Herod the Great. He ruled over territory to the north and northeast of Palestine. He was the one who interviewed the Apostle Paul in the book of Acts 25:26. He was the last of Herod's dynasty and probably died towards the end of the 1st century. After defining the identity of the main characters mentioned in the Bible with this name, we can learn more about the story of the main one. Herod the Great was born approximately 73 years before Christ. He was the son of Antipater and an Arab woman, and was a native of Idumea, a territory south of Palestine. This region was occupied by the Edomites and was later conquered by the Hasmonean dynasty of the Jews. His father became influential in Judea when Rome came to control that entire region. He was appointed by Julius Caesar as procurator. When Herod was about 26 years old, he was appointed as a type of magistrate in Galilee. In a short time, Herod gained notoriety by fighting bandits in that region. After the murder of Julius Caesar, he had the support of Antonio. Also at this time, the Hasmonean Antigonus was placed on the throne of Judea by the Parthians. This was a difficult time for Herod. He did not count on the approval of the Jews, mainly because Antigonus was a legitimate representative of the Hasmonean lineage. This lineage had already ruled that region since the Maccabean revolt. Herod had to flee, then he left for Rome in search of support. It was only then that the Roman Senate designated him king of the Jews. This happened especially due to the influence of Antonio and Ottavio. Despite having received the title King of the Jews, Herod had to face 3 years of struggles to consolidate his position. After surrounding Jerusalem with the support of Roman troops, he managed to kill Antigonus. With the death of Antigonus, nationalist Jews lost hope of independence and the country was finally subjugated. Until approximately 31 BC, Herod had a fragile position. Another threat to his kingdom was Cleopatra, ruler of Egypt. She wanted to secure Judea in the Ptolemaic kingdom, and to do so, exert a certain influence on Antony. But when Octavius became Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus, he confirmed Herod's reign. Augustus ended up increasing the limits of Herod's government, giving him new territories in Galilee. Although Herod married a Hasmonean princess, Mariamna, he never managed to overcome the disapproval of this family, who considered him a usurper of the throne. King Herod's distrust caused him to do away with leading members of the Hasmoneans, including his wife. Herod managed to pacify his borders in the interests of Rome. He reigned for more than 3 decades as a staunch ally of the Roman Empire. King Herod was also known for his buildings. He not only built in his own territory, but also undertook in foreign cities. His main public work, without a doubt, was the closing and expansion of the temple in Jerusalem. This project was started approximately in 20 BC, and at the time of Jesus Christ's ministry, it had not yet been completed. This was the temple mentioned throughout the New Testament. This work required thousands of workers, but it was a source of pride for the Jews. Jesus' own apostles recognized the greatness of that temple, but heard from the Lord that it would be destroyed, leaving no stone unturned. Matthew 24:1-2. Herod rebuilt Samaria and restructured Straton's Tower in the Mediterranean, building an artificial port there. He also rebuilt the fortress of Antonia and built himself an impotent palace in Jerusalem. Furthermore, he built cities, squares, temples, and amphitheaters in different regions of the empire. Most of the time he named his buildings with titles that honored the Roman emperor, his friends, and his family. He was so committed to the cultural endeavors of his time that he even subsidized the Olympic Games. Despite having rebuilt the temple in Jerusalem, King Herod also built several temples dedicated to Rome and the emperor. This fact shows that he was definitely a pagan king. If on the one hand King Herod showed complacency, on the other hand he showed great cruelty. He was able to disguise himself as a common citizen and blend in among the people. His objective was to understand popular thinking about him and discover possible conspiracies. This way he suppressed the slightest sign of threat to his government. King Herod did not spare even his family. Intrigues in his home caused him to execute his wife and children. All of his suspicious and bloodthirsty nature is evident in the episode in which he decreed the death of the children of Bethlehem. Matthew 2:16. When he found out about the birth of Jesus, he did everything he could to kill him. He could not tolerate the existence of someone who threatened his throne. He even tricked the wise men who came from the east into telling them about the location of the Messiah. When he discovered that he was actually the one who had been deceived, he attempted to massacre all the boys under the age of 2 in the Bethlehem region. Matthew 2. The last years of King Herod the Great's rule were marked by situations of tyranny. His absurd decisions revealed that he was driven by madness. He even ordered several of the people's elders to be killed as soon as his own death was announced. His intention was to cause great lamentation on all sides. However, this order ended up not being heeded by his heirs. Herod died at approximately 70 years of age in 04 BC. The nature of his illness is not known with certainty. Some scholars suggest a type of chronic kidney disease. The fact that he died in 04 BC, and yet it was contemporary with the birth of Jesus, it is due to the fact that there was a small error in the Christian calendar. Learn more about when Jesus was born. King Herod left in his will the division of his kingdom. Herod Archelaus was to administer Judea. Matthew 2:22. Antipas was appointed to be the ruler of Galilee and Perea. Herod Philip inherited the territories to the northeast. Luke 3:1. Archelaus governed so badly that he was denounced by the people to the Romans, so Rome appointed its own governor. Only some time later, with Herod Agrippa I, Judea returned to being governed by a member of the Herodian dynasty, even if for a short period. Herod's death was a lesson for Christians. They learned that God is just and cares about the oppressed. The verse also showed that God will not tolerate evil and will punish those who do evil. Herod's death was also a warning to those who tried to persecute the Church of Jesus Christ. God will avenge those who are wronged and treated unjustly. Therefore, Christians must be prepared to accept God's will and serve Him with love and faithfulness. If you liked this video, share it with your family, friends, and subscribe to my channel. May God bless you mightily. I'll wait for you in the next video. A big hug.